Are there any apologies for absence?
Conor, do you have the list of apologies there, please?
Yes, we've had apologies from Gavin Bown from NRW, but Gillian Perry will be representing. We've also had apologies from Emma Palmer and Diane Reynolds from Powys County Council, but Clive Pinney is attending. Also had apologies from Duncan Hamer, Welsh Government, but I believe Anne Watkin will be representing the Welsh Government. And also had apologies from Chloe Barrell, Powys Teaching Health Board, and Alison Perry, Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Thank you. I will hand over to James in a minute, but let's just do the minutes. We've had circulated the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any issues of accuracy that anyone would like to raise? No, so those are accepted as a correct record. Any matters arising that aren't dealt with elsewhere on the agenda? No, and do we have an action log from the last time or not?
Chair, there's some actions as you go through it. There's an action on page 8.
All right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, James, I'm really sorry. I just stepped in very temporarily. I haven't prepared to do so, but and I have given my apologies because I do need to leave very early. So I'm very happy to hand back to you.
No, well, Carl, I'm very grateful. If you could carry on short for a while, I'm trying to get my laptop to connect, and that's why I'm on my phone now, in desperation. And it's very difficult for me to see the papers and the meeting, so to speak, simultaneously on the phone. So if you don't mind just carrying on sharing for a short while, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Clive, I wonder if you'd be kind enough then just to take us through those actions, and either yourself or the appropriate person to give an update against those actions.
Thank you, Chair. The first action is on page 8, and the action was Public Health Team to share resources with schools and the PSB Secretariat to share with county councils for their wider dissemination. I'm afraid I don't have an update personally, but I'm hoping somebody on the call does, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, can I just confirm that has been done, and it was in relation to work around the whole system's approach to nutrition. We're equally happy to share wider if there's further action. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair, the next action is on page 12 of the agenda pack, and the action is to add an item to the agenda for September PSB meeting to consider the approach agreed by individual Powys PSB partners, and this is in relation to net zero. So but that's on the agenda, Chair.
Okay.
Our officers are to liaise outside of the meeting to raise awareness of the funding issue and for continued phase 2 work of the STEP and to prepare their option reports. So that'll be discussed later on, Chair. There's an action on the next page, page 13, PSB Secretariat to contact other PSB coordinators to understand the approach being taken to fund PSB activity and whether there was a possibility for PSB to jointly approach Welsh Government for grant funding. Again, I'm afraid I don't have an update, but I'm wondering if Conor does.
Conor, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. That work is ongoing in the background, but it's just taken a little bit of time to agree a process with all PSB partners, but we're hoping to be able to take a methodology to the board for approval, or at least discussion at the December meeting.
Thank you.
Chair, then in connection with the PSB annual report for 23-24, on page 14, you'll see that there was an action was agreed for the Secretariat to add the PSB risk register item to this agenda. I think that has happened. Conor, that's right?
Yes, Club. I think it will probably be the December meeting now.
Oh, right. So it's not. We haven't got it in this meeting.
Not this one, no. Sorry.
Okay. Chair, and that's all the actions.
That completes the actions. Thank you. And nobody's indicated that there are any other matters arising. So we come now to item 3 on our agenda, which is the verbal update in relation to the climate emergency STEP. Thank you. who's going to lead on this?
Chair,
Good
you go first, after you.
Good afternoon, Chair. I think I can take this. My name's Helen Luco. I don't know if you've all met me. I'm Head of Policy at Barney, and Liz Hutchins, who I'm sure you're all aware, has had to take some time up for a medical operation. She's in my team, so I'm happy to take this if that would be okay.
Please do.
I have got a small presentation which I will run through. Is that all right?
Yep.
I'll share my screen. I'm going to be ably assisted by Malusi, who is taking on the brunt of the work, it has to be said, in Liz's absence. Right, the presentation's coming through. Apologies, it's taking a while to load. Sorry.
No, we can see it. Thank you.
Can you? Oh, there we go. I couldn't. It must be my internet. Okay, thanks ever so much. So, so I'm here to talk about the climate emergency step. And as you all know, there are 4 strands of this work feeding into what we will essentially be delivering, which is an action plan to address the climate emergency within Powys. So we've got work going on climate risk assessment, decarbonisation and sequestration, engagement with the wider community of actors, and then some feasibility studies looking at what the transition will look like and what are the good practices that will help us actually deliver some of those actions in the plan.
Helen, I'm really sorry for interrupting. I just, for the sake of clarity, because item 3 on our agenda is a funding decision verbal update. Can we just check that's the thing that we've just had an update on before we actually come to the step update?
Oh, sorry, apologies. Well, I mean, they're all interrelated, so we could probably take the 2 items together if that would be beneficial. So you could have an update on where we are and then see why we need funding. Would that be?
Absolutely fine. We're in your hands, but I just wanted to clarify, because technically we have 2 separate agenda items. One to deal with the funding decision update, and the second one, which is a step update.
Okay, they are very much interrelated. So I'll try and be really quick just to tell you where we are and then to explain why there is the need for additional funding. Is that okay?
Yeah, please carry on.
Fab. So this work is obviously progressing really well on the risk assessment. Some of you may have already attended some of the workshops that have been held by Alan Netherwood, who's looking at what are the risks, where is Powys most vulnerable in relation to climate change. We've had one on infrastructure, health and community, business and industry, and we've got one on the natural environment on Monday. Those are really, really interesting workshops, and actually the complexity of the issues facing a rural county like Powys is actually coming to the fore, and actually how we are going to address some of these risks. In relation to the sequestration, the decarb work, so we've had Small Wheel Consultancy undertake a decarbonisation and sequestration assessment of the county of Powys. The research is almost complete. We've got preliminary analysis that's been presented to our working group. The document is including proposed priority policy interventions, and some of the findings, I'll just give you a little overview very, very briefly. Some of the findings are showing that actually within Powys, it's the rural nature of the county that's really, really driving up our carbon footprint. So our residents' carbon footprint is about 17% higher than the average UK. And that's coming from food production, food consumption, and additional fuel because of the way that we have to travel around this. And so because of that, there's an emerging policy areas being proposed in relation to those big areas, so land use, transport, buildings, and supply chains, especially around food. We've got a series of engagement events coming up. We're going to be working with the town and community councils to understand what their idea of risk is, how they could get involved. We've got work with schools. We've got risk assessment workshop with the climate stakeholder group, and we're going to be continuing some stakeholder work then with PACE and the Race to Zero to try and engage communities in taking a lead on some of the work that's going to be necessary. We've got a whole range of feasibility studies. They're really exciting. They're looking at things as wide-ranging as how you change building and retrofit to agriculture systems, to using a time travel machine to look at future food. It's all very exciting, and I look forward to reporting on those when they come back. But the reason why we're asking for additional funding is because the delivery of this plan is potentially, so we're going to do all this work, we're going to produce an amazing plan. I have no doubt of that. It will be transformative. However, the issue will be that we will produce a plan and then we will not, that ends in December. That's when we hope to be delivering it to you. My concern is that we don't have sufficient capacity to ensure that that report becomes disseminated amongst all the different governance structures that are necessary. We don't have sufficient resource then to actually start thinking about how you segue into delivery. And that is the most vital part of the project. And I'm really fearful that we just don't have the resource to be able to do it. We know that our staff are only in place until the end of the year, and I mean, they're on temporary contracts. They're excellent people. They probably would be looking for additional jobs right now if I was them. So, and the fear of losing them is obviously really detrimental to the project. And so, for discussion today is the bridge funding for the climate emergency step work, and then there's also an idea of a future and how we then get into the delivery of the climate action plan. And that's really why we need this. Create this governance structure around it, which is why we need this bridge funding. We've also then, as part of that, feel that it would be really beneficial for the board to attend a knowledge exchange on the 21st of November to actually understand in more detail all the emergent research, because what we don't want for you to end up on the 5th of December coming to a whole host of really, quite challenging information cold. So we would like to be able to make sure that you have sufficient knowledge to make that decision, with that full knowledge. And then also that we all collectively can support the climate action plan through the media release. And I think that is the end of my slides. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I will hand back to James in a minute or two, and hopefully James will be able to step into the chair. And so thank you very, very much for that. Just a word, I think we need to exercise caution in relation to discussing in public staffing issues, and particular the situation that surrounds particular members of staff employment. So just to exercise caution in relation to that. James, it looks like you're back in harness.
Thank you, Carl, Chair. Yes, I just about am. It's oh no, maybe I'm not.
So does anybody want to come in relation to anything that Helen has shared with us? I mean, clearly the funding issue is something specifically that she's raised. I don't know. It may or may not be the case that we are in a position today to consider that. That may need consideration elsewhere or outside of this meeting. But would anyone like to comment?
I can comment here, Chair, from the Powys County Council perspective, if I may.
Please do.
Yeah, just to make Helen aware that there's a paper going to CLT on Monday to explore potential bridge funding, and that's where we are at the moment. So there'll be some recommendations coming from that decision on Monday.
Forgive my ignorance, Daniel. I don't know what CLT is.
Sorry, corporate leadership team.
Oh right, yeah. Well, it's obvious when you say it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay. James.
Yeah, Chair. It might be helpful if it's explained where the current funding has come from.
Okay.
Does anybody want to
The current, it's SF.
SPF.
Shared,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. So
Funding.
shared we've got so
Shared
many
prosperity fund.
SLSPs. Yeah, shared prosperity funding, and so the cliff edge is December then for us. Yeah.
Well, my understanding is cliff edge isn't now December. Is that right, Daniel? Has not been an extension to March?
March, I understand, is the closure of that scheme. That's correct.
Yeah, but of course that's a small comfort because it's only 3 months, and if staff are going to have to be let go, then they need to be served notice, and all the other processes have to be gone through. So clearly, this is not a good situation. But I'm pleased that we, as first of all, the senior officers in the council will be getting a paper to consider next week. You said, Daniel, did you?
Yeah, that's right. It's good. Monday, 30th.
Monday, which would then come through to cabinet shortly after that. But the time is of the essence, no doubt about that. But I'm sure we would be looking to other partners as well to consider this as well. But we have no indication of what's going to happen to SPF after March, do we?
No, we don't.
And so we're all going to be looking at this. It's very difficult to know what to do, isn't it? If SPF was still going to be available, then that might be a source of funding, but then we just don't know whether it is or not.
So as I said earlier, I'm just a little bit conscious that we really shouldn't be referencing workforce implications for individuals in this kind of public forum.
No.
However, I can see that the decisions need to be made. I suppose I would look to for us to our senior officers. I don't think Emma is with us today, is she? Forgive me if I've missed her.
No, she's not.
How might we take this forward outside of this meeting so that we can consider it appropriately? And sorry, so Helen, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. And whereas I appreciate, the propriety of what you're talking about in relation to people's jobs, the issue is we will not have the resource to actually take this plan through into delivery phase, regardless if that's human resource or resource.
Yeah, okay. No,
we're not talking. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Hayley, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thank you. So apologies, Helen, I wasn't at the last meeting where this issue was originally discussed, but I can see from the minutes that clearly there was an action for people to consider, for some options to be developed and for that to be shared and for a decision to come back verbally today. To my knowledge, we haven't had any of those options shared since the meeting's discussion at the PSB, but recognising that Daniel's helpfully already said there's a discussion on in CLT next week. Perhaps we could pick it up offline. I mean, I think the context of this is important, which is we in the PSB have a number of programmes where we're tracking against our priorities, a number of actions which have been reliant on alternative or different sources of funding. And clearly there's an ongoing risk for a number potentially of key pieces of work that are important to the partnership going forward. So it may be something I could ask for us to reflect on outside of this meeting. How do we deal with some of those funding matters, first of all, in a space where we can offer some more concrete recommendations coming through to the public meeting of the PSB. So I wondered if that would be acceptable, that after Monday, next week's CLT, we could also discuss that very issue. So we have a process around this that means that we have a way of handling these issues. It's not specific, I don't think, to this particular work stream. It could become an issue across a number, so we probably need to agree a handling approach to it.
Just to help the general membership of the board, how these sorts of discussions, is there not an executive group that meets to do just that? Senior executive group from across each organisation? Am I dreaming, or is that not been how it's been dealt with in the past? Or is that what you're suggesting we need to really set up, Hayley?
So I'm not aware of a specific executive group relating to Public Service Board business only, but I think that's what I need to check. But I think it will be very important that we have a mechanism in place to support the right discussions being put on the agenda in public here, and a mechanism to deal with some of the more sensitive issues perhaps which do have workforce implications, so that we can focus in this session on tracking the outcomes of these programmes and understanding the risks, but we've got a separate place where we can just discuss perhaps more specific issues with regard to resourcing those programmes, so we can develop further recommendations. But Catherine, have I missed something? I'm not aware of anything specific at an executive level with regard to the PSB, but we can find a mechanism to get that resolved.
Good. Well, I think it looks like this matter has brought that to a head, which is good, and it means we will actually do something, which is excellent. Carl, do you want me to take over?
Yes, please.
Fine. Right. Helen wishes to come back in, and Gillian.
Yes, thank you. And I agree. This isn't an issue, I know, that just affects this work stream. It's just this work stream that obviously has my attention. I think the options paper that we talked about in the actions, that was shared via the climate working group, and that the members of the working group took that back to their board. So perhaps that is somewhere. But yes, we should have probably put that on the paper, on the an appendix to this paper. So apologies for that. But yes, I agree. A system in place to be able to find out how we can take forward projects which are obviously at threat of that sort of cliff edge funding.
Yeah, good. Right, and we await the paper, the outcome of the meeting on Monday at senior officers of the council with interest. Good. Gillian.
Muted, so I'm a bit snotty today, so I'm keeping my my sound and my picture to a minimum. Yeah, I'm just Gillian Perry. I'm just standing in for Gavin Bound, but I normally sit on the Ceredigion PSB, and I chair the subgroup there of the Climate and Nature Group. So have a view of what's happening across other PSBs, and not only is this particular issue not related to this specific work stream in Powys, I would suggest that it's an issue that is at the forefront of most PSBs' minds across the whole of the country, that the PSB as an entity is set up and established to deliver some quite meaty areas of work and some quite influential pieces of work, but that comes with either very little or no resource in the form of funding. It comes in sort of people resource, and that's certainly what NRW is putting into the PSB and to this particular work stream. But it's a common thing across the whole of the PSBs, I'd suggest.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Thank you, Gillian. That's a helpful insight. Okay, well, thank you, Helen. Is there any more you wish to add to your presentation? I've got nobody, it appears, wishing to. Oh yes, Clive Pinney.
Chair, thanks ever so much. I note the next meeting of the PSB is on the 11th of December. I'm just thinking that that's probably too long for it to come back, and I'm going to suggest, Chair, that the officers of the relevant organisations get together and produce some sort of written report for PSB, so that they know what the circumstances and the ultimate arrangements are before we get to December.
Well, indeed, that would be helpful. But when it comes to a decision, if there was a decision to make, would we have to recall the PSB? Could we make a special meeting?
Well, as I understand it, Leader, the decision will be made will be for funding from the various organisations. So if they make the funding, all PSB need to be assured of is whether or not that funding is available or not. So I don't think that in itself takes a decision of the PSB. The decision will be made elsewhere.
Okay, that's grand. Good. Helen, thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for considering this matter. I just would like to also raise that we will be extending invitations to all of the PSB members to the knowledge exchange meeting on the 21st of November. So you can all be pre-warned, pre-aware of the vast amount of knowledge that's come through from this study and the implications across Powys and our various work areas before we have to make a decision on the climate action plan, which will be at the December meeting. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation today. We all recognise the excellent work that's being done with this, and very much wish to support you, I'm sure. So if we dealt with 3 and 4.1 effectively, haven't we? So let's move to 4.2. Who's dealing with 4.2?
That would be me.
That's you, Catherine.
Yes. Hello. So yes, on page 21 to 28 of your report packs, you will see the update from the evidence and insight sort of work stream. So yeah, we are progressing to plan. This quarter, we've been engaging with the Shaping Places Wellbeing Programme. We've published the PSB annual report, which was approved at the last meeting, and the link to that is in the pack. So it would be great if you could promote that in your own organisations. In terms of engagement, we are working closely with regional partnership board partners on some shared co-production principles. The team have also been supporting the climate risk assessment work that Helen mentioned just a little bit earlier, and workshops have been organised for people from a variety of sectors. We've also been looking and supporting the Police and Crime Commissioner's plan, and also the engagement around the proposed changes to the minor injury units, the health board's work. And now in terms of data, we're still doing it actually, but an update to the population needs assessment. So there's a need for a midpoint review as part of legislation. So that's being looked at currently and updated using the 2021 census information to ensure we're working off the most up-to-date information that we do have. We've also been looking at how to bring together the wellbeing assessment and the population needs assessment to try and reduce duplication in the processes that we've got, and working alongside Welsh Government in terms of our data or interactive data wellbeing information bank, which is on the Powys website, and the information that comes from Stats Wales on there. So we're just working alongside them whilst they transition across to a different provider. In terms of future activity then, so one of the things is to look at our digital footprint and potentially having a dedicated PSB website subject to the agreement of the board. We're also thinking of a newsletter so that we can update those out in the community about what we as a group are doing, as well as people in our own organisations and county councillors. Again, carrying on with the population needs assessment, as that is quite a chunky piece of work. Also looking to undertake a data maturity assessment and see where we all are in terms of the data that we've got and how we use it. Also, as mentioned earlier, really looking to identify any funding. So whilst everybody that is taking part in this work stream is funded from, they are from the Powys County Council sort of side of things, but so it's not that we need to fund posts. It's more to help bring in some funding to try different techniques and innovative solutions to engaging with people. So that's something we are looking at, and also trying to improve the information sharing mechanisms we've got in place. So sometimes we're all on slightly different systems, use slightly different tools, etc. So trying to look at how we can bring those closer together and share things more easily, particularly on Microsoft Teams, and we're all on slightly different ones, and also focusing on aligning these 3 steps. So where we can, bringing those together in terms of what data they require, engagement, etc. So really, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. But does anyone have any questions, or if you want further detail, James is on board, as he obviously is in it more than I am. Thank you.
Oh, you've batted them into submission, Catherine.
I'm not sure about that.
I'll ask a question. Could you explain what the Wellbeing Commissioner's maturity matrix is?
The maturity matrix. Yeah, so well, this is something we've undertaken here at Powys County Council. So yeah, it's an opportunity to look at where you're at and how you can improve, so where you are on a scale. But Jim, I don't know if you wanted, I'm not really doing it justice there, but it's a tool that you can use to assess where you are as an organization and how you can make, move, progress forwards. So it's something that I think if everybody undertook, we could understand where we all are and as a sort of common group and how we can progress things forward in certain places.
Absolutely. Just to add to that one, if I may, and it's very much around our implementation of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, particularly the 5 ways of working. So within this work stream in particular, quite a vested interest in, whilst all of the principles, particularly the involvement element of making sure we're doing as much as we can as a public sector, obviously as a collective public sector on that front. So we're looking to, I know a few partners have already undertaken the assessment separately. So very much looking at actually how do we share findings, learn from each other, and really try and push collectively, essentially, in terms of maturing and on that assessment and for implementation of the Act.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions? Mez, please. Ms. Bowley.
Yeah, no, just to concur with James, we have sort of completed that. So I'd be happy to chair that, and that was led by Sam Raven. Thank you.
Thank you. Malusi? Oh, no. Sorry. Yes, Malusi, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick question. I was wondering, do you know what the timescales for the development for the PSB website are? I think it would be interesting from our perspective, from the climate emergency step, to ensure that the climate action plan is publicly accessible and all the data from that is available to the public to see.
Good question. Catherine?
Well, we're still in the sort of early stages, and we don't even know if the collective wants a website at the moment, so we haven't really got a timescale as to when it would be live. But if that is something that we need to promote, I'm sure each organisation could take an action to share. We can send it out to town and community councils, etc., to promote it that way, if that helps.
Yeah.
We have 110 of them, and they could sort of promote it around their communities.
Yeah, no, that'll be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And a message from in the chat, Ewan Cray from Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service saying that they're happy to share their matrix as well, which is good. Do we want to dwell on the scrutiny observations, which are also in your report? Are they not? Yeah. Yeah. Page 25 to pack, or 5 of your report. Is there anything on there, Catherine, you wish to highlight?
Yeah, so as it suggests, the PSB scrutiny did meet on the 15th of July, and the recommendations they made are here. I suppose I think the risk register is something that they suggested would be useful for us all as a group, and also considering our key performance indicators or measures that we've got in place, and some of the timescales to help them sort of understand whether outcomes are being achieved, and things like that, and also to look at the national indicators that we have and ensuring those are aligning with the wellbeing plan and objectives. So yeah, so it was a very useful scrutiny session that we had, and yeah, these were the main ones that came out from that scrutiny.
Good. And we've pretty much accepted all, if anyone, in part of their recommendations, which is equally good.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I've got nobody else wishing to ask a question or comment. So shall we move on? Thank you very much, Catherine. So then we go on to the healthy weight step. Mez, are you doing this one? Nobody helping. Ms. Bowley.
Okay.
Are you
Hi,
on mute?
couldn't hear me. Can you hear me
Sorry, we
now?
couldn't hear you. Yeah, we can.
Apologies. Yeah, I was saying my colleague Fiona was joining us for this item, and I think we gave her a slot between 3 and 3:30 because she's in another meeting. So I just wondered, Chair, whether I could do the annual report first and then swap the agenda around if that
Sure.
was at all possible.
Of course, no problem. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so I've put my hand down. Lovely. Yeah, so as part of my role, I'm sort of required to produce an annual report which describes the health of the population, or an element of the health of the population. So the report is included in your packs, and I have put a couple of slides together just to try and bring elements of it to life. So I'm going to just share that on screen, and if anybody's going to be able to indicate when you're able to see that.
Yes, thank you. We can see it. Thanks.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Okay, lovely. And it is in presentation mode, is it? Doesn't, it looks different from my end.
It's not in presentation mode yet.
Okay. Shall I carry on, and then by the time yes, okay. So so in terms of, as I mentioned, this is the first sort of report. And as part of this report, what I wanted to describe was the health of the population in Powys, and also set out some of the key health challenges that faces our population as a whole, and then some of the opportunities that we have that I can see that we can address them. And as part of the report, we've got sort of 5 chapters. Chapter 1 is looking at describing the health and well-being of the population. Chapter 2 is looking at aspects of health protection, and then chapter 3 is looking at promoting health and so forth. So in terms of the first sort of chapter, some of this I'm conscious will be familiar to colleagues as well. So we all familiar with Powys having a population of 134,000 people, and over time, the last 10 years, the population has remained fairly stable in terms of numbers. However, we have had sort of changes in terms of the population aging. And when you look at the graphs there in front of you, the graph in the middle will show you, in terms of the census to 2021, what the change has been over that 10 years. And as you'll see, that there's been a growth of 19% in terms of the population changes in individuals over 65, and then a corresponding sort of decrease then in children and young people element. And then when we look forward in terms of projections for population sort of numbers, what the graph on the right is showing, that by 2040, so is that in about 14, 15 years time, about a third of the population will be over 65 in Powys, and then a corresponding continued decrease in terms of a declining birth rate element there. So I thought that may be sort of helpful, because we are aware that we've got sort of aging population. We compare Wales as a whole as well, that we are at the sort of forefront of that, but equally, what are these projections sort of telling us? And then the first graph there is showing how the population sort of looked at comparing what it was in 1948 to 2021. And then that graph hopefully is clear really in terms of how the population has changed sort of over time. So the good news is that we live longer, and which is great in terms of health and sort of well-being, but what it does mean as well in terms of how we provide and what we provide and how services changes as well. Okay, as we age, and I just checked that split, yeah. As we age, we do tend to experience more ill health and multiple chronic condition. That is a factor of sort of aging. However, in terms of developing chronic conditions, not all are inevitable, and some conditions are preventable as well. And some of those preventable sort of conditions may be elements of type 2 diabetes, for instance. And we've seen a growth in diabetes in Powys and indeed across Wales and across the UK as well. And to give you a feel in terms of sort of numbers, really, from in the 10 years between 2010 and 2021, diabetes, people living with diabetes increased by 40% in our population. And recently, a colleague has just done some further projections in terms of diabetes, and based on our current information that we have, we're expecting further projections of increase in sort of chronic conditions as well. But it's also sort of important to remember that not all conditions are inevitable, some are preventable as well. And then in terms of the pie chart in the middle of the table there, that sort of shows 2/3 of early deaths in Powys are caused by 3 chronic conditions. What we mean by early deaths is deaths before the age of 75. Sort of in public health terms, we class them as early deaths. So, and the 3 sort of major conditions there are cancer, sort of heart disease and stroke, and respiratory diseases. And then, so the diagram then to the right of that will show that some of the drivers for these conditions, or some of the risk factors, which say can be modified through lifestyles. Not obviously all of them, but there are some preventable elements. And colleagues will be familiar with these sort of 5 in the box around, smoking, diet and nutrition, alcohol, overweight or obesity, and how active we are in general. And then I've included a quote there from Sir Chris Whitty, the CMO for England, in his report recently. He highlighted as well that some of these conditions are inevitable element really, but as we age, we can prevent some of them as well. Okay, but it's also important to remember in terms of our sort of life element really, that multiple factors that affect our health and well-being, and that includes in terms of access to healthcare and healthcare around us, but our wider determinants as well. So we know really the sort of environment and conditions that we're born in, that we grow, that we live and work, do affect our health. So we call these the wider determinants, and these can affect things, our work, our education, our housing, transport opportunities, and so forth. So collectively, that's why I wanted to bring the sort of report really to the attention of partners really, is how we do that concerted effort to look at collective preventative approaches. Equally, we're all familiar with some of the work around giving children the best start in life. That is element around establishing good lifestyle, but also what we do know that the foundations of good health are also laid down in childhood as well, and looking at those diminishing impacts of the life course really in terms of our health and well-being. So it's important that we look at giving children best start in life, and a number of factors influencing that, and that is across all sort of agencies. But equally, as we age, how do we help keep people healthy, maintain good health, and delay some of those risk factors or conditions as we age? And then as part of the report elements and each chapter, I have sort of included some examples of calls to actions really, that many partners will be doing elements of these already, but they're examples of collective things that perhaps we can do across organisations, communities, so forth really, that we can look at in terms of what are those evidence-based actions really that we can all look at, and look at how, whether we can incorporate these into our sort of services. And equally, the other side of that is individuals and organisations may look at these actions and go, actually, we're doing that already, and actually can then map it back to sort of contributions to keeping people healthy. So some of the examples here are obviously as individuals, we can all take look at how we can take responsibility to look at impacting in terms of our health and the choices that we may be able to make within the environments that we are living as well. And some of those choices may be easier than others. And equally, how do we look at aging as well and self-care? And then as public organisations, what actions are we taking to address the wider determinants of health? Well, we're collectively doing lots of staff and organisations do work with children and young people. Are we collectively looking how that's coordinated to try and give our children the best start in life? And as a health organisations, we've got a key role here to play, so to keep people healthy and access to services. And then as we develop chronic conditions as we age, to help and support individuals to manage those conditions well, so we live well with chronic conditions as we age. And then I've given an example there as well. As a local authority, we all have smoke-free legislation. It'd be an example of how we look at promoting to make sure we enforce sort of legislation. Okay. And then in terms of the sort of second chapter and the remaining chapters, they're examples of work that are ongoing across organisations in Powys. So I wanted to today to emphasise really around the health of the population and what we've got really coming towards us in terms of change of demography for the population and how we prepare for that as well in terms of our sort of services and collectively as we age and we'll have a growing ageing population. It's absolutely really good news that we have got one of the longest life expectancies in Powys, and that's really good. And that's and compared to Wales, that's really good. But when we look at then comparing that to UK and internationally, we don't fare so well. So it's important that actually we don't sort of sit on our laurels and think just within Wales. We need to look at how we maintain that health and keep people well for as long. So those years that we have in terms of ill health are sort of shorter. And then in terms of chapter 2 around health protection elements, so that chapter covers some work in relating to the emergency phase of the pandemic, which was a great effort across all partners to respond to what was challenging and unprecedented sort of times for everybody. All our communities, everybody was sort of affected. So examples of what was covered during that time through agencies to look at how everybody pulled together. And then equally, I've included some work as well that are proactively undertaken by the health protection team in the local authority and in the health board to support care homes over the last winter to manage and prevent, and then if they did occur, incidents and outbreaks in sort of care homes. So important that I express my gratitude there as well to colleagues in care homes who welcomed that support and worked together with our organisations. And then I've obviously included details of sort of vaccinations, and it'd probably be remiss of me during this presentation if I didn't mention that from next week we will be launching a flu and COVID vaccination winter campaign element there. So if you're an eligible groups for sort of flu, all our pharmacists and GP offer flu vaccination element really, and if pregnant women can receive vaccination as well for flu through their midwifery or GP teams and school nursing support in sort of schools there. Okay, so in terms of obviously important to that we continue to protect the population around health protection, and I've given some examples there really that it is very much a collaborative sort of approach really around vaccinations. We do vaccinate throughout the life course in terms of from pregnancy right through as we age, and we all play our part there as well. And I'm pleased to say that Powys as a whole has a very good uptake of vaccination rates. But we've also been working over the last sort of year or so to look at where our gaps are, or where somebody may have missed vaccination for whatever reason. They moved into the area, or they may have missed their sort of invitations to contacting individuals, particularly our children and young people, to look at. On our database, they may have been showing as if they've been missed, to offer that opportunity to catch up element. And I've talked about health visiting and school nursing. They've, on a daily basis, work around vaccination and promoting good health as well. And then I've mentioned our role as healthcare staff as well, and social care staff, that if they are in eligible groups for vaccination, again, encourage individuals to take up that vaccine, because it not only protects them, their families and loved ones, but equally individuals they may care for as well. Okay, so okay, move on. Okay, and then a third chapter, I've sort of homed in really on promoting healthy behaviours, and talked here around smoking, tobacco control, action, vaping. Individuals will probably have seen an increase in vaping over the last 12 to 18 months in young people in particular, and we did a call to action on that last sort of summer. A bit about alcohol and harms of alcohol in the community as well. And again, examples of some work that, great work I have to say, that's going on in terms of partnerships in sort of Powys there. And then, but always there's more to be done, isn't there, really? So our smoking rates are down to about 10% across Wales. We do have an ambition in Wales for a smoke-free Wales by 2030, and equally within Powys, a smoke-free Powys as well by 2030. So we need to continue our sort of actions there. And then some of the actions that we can look at collectively undertaking. We do have a Help Me Quit service, which is a smoking cessation service to support anybody who wishes and is ready to give up smoking. And that's for all partners, communities, self-referral that can refer into that sort of service, and individuals would be supported on their journey to quit smoking. Schools already do quite a good work around smoke-free grounds, which is in legislation, and we've seen some preventative work as well in some of our secondary schools on a programme called Just Be. So Just Be is an evidence-based programme that's delivered by Public Health Wales, and pleased that 6 of our comprehensive schools participated in that programme during the last 12 months, and it is a peer mentoring programme involving sort of young people. And then in terms of frontline staff, and I would say this is across all sectors, we'd like to sort of further develop what we call making every contact counts element. So often we will have different individuals across organisations will have contacts with members of the public, and they may ask for different advice. And I think is how do we provide that consistent advice or messages? So if somebody asks something about, you know, where do I have smoking on finding it hard, that they know where they can refer people to, and so forth. So over the next sort of 12 months, we'll be looking to increase our activity around making every contact count across our sort of partners, and look at providing training there for those that are interested as well. And in terms of alcohol element, really, one area where we are in Powys as a bit of an outlier is that alcohol intake in young people is higher than some other areas of Wales. So that would be something that we'll need to look at as across the partnerships over the next sort of 12, 18 months, to look at what evidence-based programmes that we can look to support and understand why that is. And then my next chapter is around healthy weight, healthy Powys. So I won't dwell much on this, because otherwise I will cover the next item in terms of the progress of our healthy weight systems work. But within the report, I have highlighted the work of the PSB and the great work the partners are doing to tackle sort of healthy weight element. So we did work about 2 years ago that identified that when our children at age 4 or 5 entering school, our rates were about 28-29% element of school entry in terms of children being overweight or obese element. That has reduced, I'm pleased to say, over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, with work that's been going on over the last few years, and links back also to our work around giving children the best start in life. So you'll hear more about some of that wider work around healthy weights in partnership when at the end of this item, when Fiona presents. And then the last chapter in the report is about addressing inequities in our sort of population. And inequalities often can be hidden, can't they, really? Not everybody in our population has an equal opportunity to make healthy choices or access element around their health and well-being. So I've highlighted some actions that are going on to first highlight where the inequities are in Powys in different sort of population, but equally some examples of work then that have been going on to try and address variation in our population around inequalities, to give everybody the opportunity of a best health possible. And within that report, I've highlighted some joint work across partners last year, where in Estrogen Lice, we all collectively organised a healthy estrogen lice sort of event, really, where lots of partners came together to share, and it was very well attended and received by the community. And I think that's something, isn't it, that we can look collectively at as we go forward around sort of place-based element, really, what we can do together to sort of highlight what is available within sort of the communities, and equally what do our communities want in terms of support. And then, so in terms of addressing inequities, I've sort of highlighted here the Socioeconomic Duty Act. So this is an act that came in 2022, I think, from memory. And it's about, as public bodies, how we ensure decision making considers those who experience disadvantage to enable all individuals to have the best health outcomes. And then some work that we've been doing around veterans as well, to highlight veteran-friendly GP practices, and we're rolling that at accreditation out across the health board area currently. So in terms of next steps, I think I just wanted to sort of highlight this here, but equally happy to come and have a discussion at anybody's meeting if that was helpful as well, if you wanted to drill down further in terms of the report. So thank you for your time today.
No, thank you. Very interesting. Are there any questions? Very comprehensive report. No comments, questions? Oh, Hayley.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, my hand wasn't working then. Thanks, Mez. I mean, for us as a health board, we're lucky we get this report by Mez, and it's really important, I think, that we place them firmly into the partnership space, because I think in particular what it shows is that not any single partner can actually deliver against the call to actions that Mez has identified. And I think the couple of things that particularly strikes me with it is around, I really like the way in which the call to action identified the different levels at which we need to respond, including at that organisational system level, but also in communities and at an individual level as well. And I just wondered, you know, clearly there is it's a bit of a dilemma at the moment around, if you look at the key messages within that presentation around how and where we need to be focusing our attention to try and change the shape of illness and keep people healthy and reduce demand on our services, and also the issues around but where we spend our current resources. And I think that would show us a slightly different picture around where we're actually currently focusing, and in particular that point, one of your slides, Mez, where we were very aware of this, that diminishing impact of the life course. It's just understanding as well where we take targeted action. And I think Mez and I've had some discussions around, you know, children, young people, but actually the middle population, you know, how do we prepare people in their 40s and 50s to become healthier as they grow in age? So I think there's some really important principles in this that we probably need to embrace as a partnership, and it really does talk to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the whole purpose of the Public Services Board. So I guess I'm keen to particularly explore the call to action requirements for us as a partnership, and how we might want to engage on that going forward.
Thank you. Indeed. I'm sure we all agree with everything you're saying there, Hayley. And in particular, just how it is that all of these priorities are multi-agency, absolutely multi-agency. Health isn't just an issue for the health board, it's an issue for us all, isn't it? All the agencies. Fire service as much as anybody else, Ewan. So are there any other questions? No. Thank you very much, Mez. So are we ready to go back to the healthy weights, which of course is part of your annual report as well, the healthy weights section, or is your colleague not yet with us?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I can see Fiona's joined.
here.
So yeah, thank
Well
you,
done.
Fiona. Great.
Welcome,
Thank
Fiona.
you. That's fine.
Hello.
And I know Fiona's got, hi Fiona, thank you for joining us. I know you're joining from another meeting. and you've got a few slides as well. Can I just check, are you putting the slides on the screen, or do we need to ask colleagues in corporate team and local authority to put them on the screen?
If you've got them, that would be easier. I could put them up, but I'm in a different. I have got them. I'll see if I can. I'll see if I can upload them.
Okay, thank you.
Let me see. Let me see if this is the right. I've got so many. I think this. Oh no, that's an old one.
So Fiona, it's in the packs
yes.
today.
Okay. So
anyway, so yeah. So do you want to take us through then?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'll start now. Thank you for the invite, everyone. Nice to be here. So yeah, I'm just going to be talking about the whole system approach to healthy weight in Powys, which I'm working on with a small group of colleagues. So this is a national programme, a national approach and methodology, recognising that overweight and obesity is a significant problem in terms of both the numbers of people who are overweight or obese and the impact on health and other outcomes. And so it's a population level approach to prevention of overweight and obesity, and it's following a national 9-step programme. We are currently on step 7/step 8. So on some areas, we're actually mobilising and managing, on others, we're working on the action plan. So when we started the approach, we had meetings with strategic stakeholders, and a system of focus was decided on, and that system was children aged 0 to 5, families, and access to healthy food, which obviously is a massive system. So we held further stakeholder events, and that area was broken down into 4 further areas, which are breastfeeding, introduction to solid foods, also known as weaning, cooking skills, and affordability of healthy food. And we're at different stages with each of those areas, but making good progress. So I wanted to update you. The areas I'm working on are breastfeeding and introduction to solids. And one area in the breastfeeding work is the introduction of the breastfeeding welcome scheme to Powys. What we found is that Powys has an excellent initiation record, with over 80% of mothers initiating breastfeeding, but this falls to below 60% by 6 weeks. And there's some evidence that mothers are anxious when they go out in the community. They, feel unsupported, and so stop breastfeeding. And so what we've done, we launched the scheme in August the 1st, to coincide with World Breastfeeding Week. And we're delighted that both Powys Teaching Health Board and Powys County Council committed to signing all public facing areas up to the scheme. The Royal Welsh Showground has already signed up, and actually since I prepared this PowerPoint, 52 premises were signed up, but it's now over 70 areas have signed up. We're doing it in a staged approach across Powys, and our council colleagues are currently working in Ystwyth and Newtown. We've also explored rollout with other PSB members, and Dyfed Powys Police are looking at signing up, as are Bannau Brycheiniog. And links, we're looking at links with climate and nature transformation, because obviously breastfeeding has far less of an impact on climate than formula feeding, which you have to chop down forests and transport the formula milk, and also with looking at the financial impact of breastfeeding as well as the health impact, in that the more children, babies who are breastfed, the fewer hospital admissions there are with illnesses such as gastroenteritis, and longer term, mothers who breastfeed are, for a certain, for a reasonable length of time, have lower risk of ovarian cancers and breast cancers. And so it's looking at these long-term impacts on health and finances. Within the Health Board, the Breastfeeding Welcome Scheme, the information about the scheme has all been added to the staff induction plan for all new staff, and is also being included in the equality and diversity training and training for new managers. So it's really trying to get the information out there and address the social norm, whereas it's very common to see mothers out formula feeding their babies, but we want to give that same confidence to mothers who are breastfeeding. And so far, all of the businesses that have been approached so far have signed up. Our aim is that 50% of businesses approached go on to sign up, but so far it's been 100%, which is really promising and pleasing. So, any questions about that area?
Nothing showing. No hands. No.
Lovely. I'll go on to the introduction to solids. So.
Oh yes, Clive. Clive
Sorry.
has put his hand up. No,
yeah.
Clive,
sorry, Chair. And forgive me, because I this is the very first meeting I've attended of this board, and I may have missed lots and lots of Gymru before. but it struck me as odd to me personally that this section is I can quite understand the importance of breastfeeding, but I can't quite understand it in the context of this report, which is about healthy weight in Powys. Is it really the case that formulas are more fatty than and worse off for babies? If it is, please excuse me in ignorance.
No, absolutely. It's a really good question. So babies who are breastfed, breast milk, each individual baby, the mother produces exactly the right breast milk for that baby. And it's not just calories. Well, actually, the breast milk contains lots of different antibodies and surfactants that protect the gut. So the baby's gut with the breast milk is actually sealed, and infection and things don't get in when they've been breastfed. Whereas a formula fed baby, the formula can actually prompt allergic reactions because it's cow's milk, and the proteins are of different size, so they can get through the gut wall and lead on to further allergies. And also, a baby who's breastfed regulates its own appetite. So a breastfed baby, when it's full, it will stop breastfeeding. Whereas with a formula fed baby, parents receive information saying, this size of baby maybe would, should have 4 to 6 ounces, whatever. And if there's milk still in the bottle, the parents may think, oh, I better finish the bottle. So the baby is less likely from birth to regulate its own appetite.
Thank you.
And there's quite a bit of evidence that children and adults who are breastfed are less likely to be overweight or obese than formula-fed infants.
Thank you ever so much.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me to say that, actually. So moving on to introductions to solids. So moving on from breastfeeding, as well, with breastfeeding, babies who are breastfed will have had the taste of lots of different foods that their mothers will eat. So, for example, mother has eaten a lot of garlic, that will come through in the breast milk. So babies get used to quite strong tastes. But highlights that issues that were highlighted during our strategic meetings were concerns around ultra-processed food, dental health, sugar content of foods, and also the cooking skills of parents. And so we worked with dietitians who basically rewrote the presentation and information for parents, and also updated the training for the staff who deliver the courses to parents. So that was all delivered to staff during Q1, it's around about April, May time, and the presentation has now started to be delivered to parents, and these resources provide information on obviously healthy food, preparation of healthy food, how preparation at home can be cheaper and more nutritious than bought foods. For example, a lot of foods, bought foods, are based on sweet sweet foods, and even something that's advertised as a vegetable food very often has apple as a base, or carrot, which is sweet, and that can sometimes influence a baby's tastes to be, to prefer sweet foods. So we talk about that a lot, about dental health. And also something that was highlighted by speaking with parents is that they get very worried when they're introducing solids about choking. And so we include a session on telling the difference between choking and gagging, and a little short video on what to do, if a baby does seem to be choking. So the next stage is to evaluate these courses and produce a map of where they're presented across Powys, to make sure that they're presented in all different areas, and to look at the feedback from parents. Another area that we're looking at is cooking skills, and Joint Council and Health Board Initiative secured funding for 1 year, and this allowed courses of 6-week 2-hour sessions in nutrition, cooking and numeracy to be held. Further sessions are planned. And then interested participants can be signposted to further training opportunities in cooking or maths. What we're aware of is that this is more of an intervention-based approach, which it does have a place in systems work, but it's just a small part of it, and it's important that we evaluate it and look at how we can take more of a systems approach, and that includes looking at ways to build capacity and to sort of embed a sustainable cooking courses across Powys to ensure equity in that area. Is that a question? Something's just popped up on my screen. I'm
No,
not
it's
sure.
just
No,
in the chat. No.
Oh, lovely. No.
Yeah.
The last area, affordability of healthy food. My colleague Chloe, who's not here today, she's doing a lot of work here as well, and is working with settings for 0 to 5-year-olds, looking at procurement and nutritional skills amongst the staff. And another area that we've been looking at is the Healthy Start scheme, which has been running for a long time now, but is possibly going to be reviewed by the national team in the next few months, because they're finding that there are a number of barriers to access, with uptake generally being around the 60% level. In Powys, what we've noticed is that it's not, the cards cannot be used online, so people living in rural communities aren't able to use them for at-home deliveries. And we've also been told by quite a few people now that cards are quite outdated, and that it needs to be updated to a phone app, which would help people to use it, younger parents especially, to use it. So we've forwarded these recommendations to the national team, and they're looking at that. The latest uptake figures we have for Powys is 62%, but the data collection is being reviewed. It's collected by DWP, and that's being reviewed at the moment. So we're going to, have to wait for any further information there. So a bit of a flying visit there, but any questions?
No, many thanks, Fiona. That's really interesting. Are there any questions? Yes, Mez has got a question or a comment.
Yeah, not a question, but thank you, Fiona. Yeah, it's just more of a comment, really. This is obviously a step or key priority area for PSB, so it's a multi-agency partnership involving all partners that are driving the work, together. So it's just to say that in the context of the examples of work's been taken forward, firmly a PSB priority for all partners. Do you know what I mean? So my thanks to partners to continue for being involved, and I think is an example really of collective effort across sort of areas as well. Thank you, Fiona, as well, for
thank you
coming today.
No, thank you indeed. Are there any other comments that people wish to make? No? Good. Well, it's progress on all of these steps, which is good to see.
Yes.
And it must be gratifying for those working in those areas as well to see at least, you know, you're not just banging your head against a brick wall, you're actually getting somewhere, which is good.
Definitely. Yeah.
But
Thank
yeah,
you very much.
no, not at all. Not at all.
I'll leave now. Back to
All
my
right.
other meeting. Thank you.
Back to your other things. Thank you very much for your attendance. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Right. So we are coming to the end of our agenda, I think. Are there any other items? There's the dates of the next meeting are there. As Clive has already pointed out, the next full meeting is due on the 11th of December. But as we've heard, there'll be some officer level discussions before that about some key issues around funding and the like. Is there any other business we need to conduct? Clive, can you? Clive or Catherine?
Leader, I'm not aware of any other further business. I don't think there's any hands up elsewhere, Leader, either.
No, indeed. Okay, well, it brings us to the end of our meeting then, and thank you very much for all who've attended. Onwards and upwards. We are making progress, so thank you very much. Good.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody.
Bye now. Bye.
Thank you. Diolch.
Bye.